What is home for you? Is it the place where you were born? The one person you feel closest to? Is it your hometown, country, or this planet? I'm still searching for the meaning of home, but experience has taught me that we care for our home and the people in it. I believe we can have multiple homes, and we can share one too. I'm Anila Bano from Gilgit-Baltistan in the northern areas of Pakistan, a placid region with abundance of natural and cultural beauty. This land of picturesque landscapes is, however, exposed to various natural disasters, which are compounded by global climate change. The high mountain ranges and the fast-flowing rivers create sub-communities in this region. Some of these communities live in far isolated valleys, only accessible through a simple, primitive suspension bridge or a narrow gravel road for a one-way traffic flow. With this context of isolated communities, my talk today is about the impacts of climate change on high mountain ranges and how to respond to it. I'll also discuss an example of effective response to the impacts of climate change. To help you imagine what I'm talking about, allow me to take you on a short journey. Last summer, I was going home for the first time in 2 years. As I was planning for summer at home, I wanted to get a sense of any changes that had happened there while I was away. As I researched, I learned about some floods in our district. Then my mom told me about a flood in a village that was recently hit by the flood. And that reminded me of the 2010 flooding in my own village when I was young and did not know what was happening. This time, learning about the flood was not a shock, but it brought a thought. Why frequent flooding in the north? What has changed? And what can I do? Instantly, I remembered a film directed by Prince Ali Aga Khan in the northern areas of Pakistan. Close to home is a short documentary about the work of Aga Khan Agency for Habitat in response to natural disasters in Gilgit. The film and memories of 2010 flooding inspired me to learn about this issue. So, instead of seeing it as yet another global issue that we can't do anything about, I made it a part of my summer plan to visit Batswat, the flood-affected village in Gilgit. In August 2018, less than a month after the flood, I hit the road to Batswat with my uncle and cousin. The roads were dangerous and the weather unpredictable. After hours of traveling, we reached a place which showed no further access to a motor vehicle. We started on foot. It was hard to believe that there will be people living ahead. We had reached a narrow valley with mountains on both sides and fast, rushing water in between, flowing over rocks it had brought along. The scene hit me hard. As I looked at the dark, rushing water, the half-broken green hills, the gigantic glacier-enclosing mountains, I was stunned for a while. Then the first thing came to mind was climate change. I had learned about the phenomena of climate change and global warming, but all of a sudden, it became real because it hit near home. After hopping and walking over stones and water for hours, we reached Batswat, a beautiful green village on top of a hill. There we got an opportunity to talk to the people who were affected by the flood. Here's a person who volunteered to tell us what happened. He simply pointed at the melting glacier and said, "That's where the flood came from." Surely, it's more than a flood for the people of Batswat and Gilgit at large. With a breaking bridge, hearts and hopes are broken. When distant communities are disconnected, they become further isolated, some being in a constant risk of danger. When roads are swept away, students are detached from their schools. When houses are shattered, people lost their homes. Extreme winter weather makes the conditions even worse. They said the flood changed everything for them. They said they lived a happy life before and had everything to sustain themselves. Therefore, a flood in this area is not a matter of mere disturbance. Their lifestyles shift as they wait for help to bring them back to normal. And if the support takes long, these communities might sink back in despair. Therefore, an urgent response to natural disasters is crucial here for keeping the hope of a promising future. When I asked them, what's the biggest issue for them right now? They said, road and water for their crops. That sounded like a strength of the community, the desire to be self-sufficient instead of being dependent on outsiders. Nevertheless, we all need help in times of crisis. During our conversations with the people of Batsuat, I learned about various government and non-governmental agencies that were helping them with food and other basic necessities. One example is Aga Khan Agency for Habitat, AKA, which is the focus of my point about effective response to impacts of climate change. In the face of devastating impacts of climate change, AKA is reaching out to these remote areas in Pakistan, Tajikistan, and Afghanistan. Their philosophy is simple: to ensure that poor people live in physical settings that are as safe as possible from impacts of natural disasters, that residents who do live in these high-risk areas are able to cope with the natural disasters in terms of preparedness and response, and that these settings provide access to social and financial services that can lead to a greater opportunity and a better quality of life. So with the objectives of safety, resilience, opportunity, and service, AKA is working with these communities to strengthen them, to build human capacity, and to ensure effective community response. In the case of Batsuat, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat has remained the top support. Even before the flood of 2018, the team had visited this area for risk analysis. They had provided the people with training in terms of preparedness and response. And after the flood case, AKA chose a collaborative approach to work with the Pakistan government in meeting the needs of these communities. They provided them with food and medical care through helicopters. Although it took a while, the road was built to reconnect these villages. Currently, Aga Khan Agency for Habitat is working on a relocation plan for the people of high-risk areas in Batsuat. Therefore, support in rehabilitation is a significant component of AKA's work. I had the honor to interview the staff lead of Aga Khan Agency for Habitat working in the north, where I posed him a question. How are the strengths of local communities utilized in the work of AKA? They listed several strengths of the northern areas, some of which I hadn't even thought about before. For instance, the village organizations, trees and stones, desire of people to acquire quality education, which drives them to collaborate in relocation initiatives, access to safe places in close proximity, and local workers. In addition, the natural resilience of the people of northern areas is a tremendous strength when it comes to furthering this resilience in the face of calamities. No doubt, building on the strengths of local communities is a great approach towards solving local issues. Since the impacts of climate change are not uniform, choosing a localized plan for specific areas is crucial. That being said, climate change is not a local problem. Where would the water from melting Himalayan glaciers go? The answer is straightforward. And I hope you remember my first question. What is home for you? Regardless of who we are, we share a home, this planet Earth. While it's important to take care of the Earth, it's also really important to reach out to the members of our home who need the most help. Although a glacier melting in the Himalayas and Karakorams is more than a flood for the people there, it also brings devastating outcomes down the road. Since climate change is a global phenomenon, it's really important to collaborate internationally to help these communities and in turn ourselves. But the question always remains, how do we do that? Well, organizations like Aga Khan Agency for Habitat can start working locally with these communities to provide them with resources and relief. National and local governments can be more cognizant of the needs of distant communities, especially when they are hit by natural disasters. We can start learning about the issues of isolated communities. Learning about the non-uniform effects of climate change will at least help us come out of our bubbles where we might be unsure if climate change is happening or not. I invite us all to stop being stuck in this conundrum of whether climate change is real or not. Let us become part of the solution instead of staying passive and becoming part of the problem. Let us build a hopeful future and not a hopeless one. I choose to work to bring hope to our home. Will you?